industry experts from powerhouse brands. Earned Summit, Building a Community by Tribe Dynamics.
For anyone who's already joined, we're going to wait just a minute for other attendees to filter in, and then we'll get things started. Looks like people are still trickling in. Going to give it a few more minutes. Not too long though. We don't have that much time. All right, gonna go ahead and get started. I'll do a brief intro here. I'm incredibly excited to be sitting across the screen from Sarah Curtis Henry. She has a wealth of knowledge to share. So as I mentioned to her kind of on our call prep, I will speak as little as possible and hopefully guide a compelling conversation really about her career, how she sees the skincare market and category, and kind of advice that she has for young professionals in the business today. I think the experience that you bring to the table is something that we all can learn from. You've been in leadership positions across brands like Guerlain, Clinique, Estee Lauder, most recently Fresh, and then now sits as the CMO of Tatcha. So to kick things off, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about yourself, your current role, and really what brought you there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brit and Tribe team, for having me. This is really an honor. And really to be addressing all of you out there in the virtual world. You may see a 4-year-old, I have a son, run into the frame at some point. If you see that, just prepare yourself. It likely will happen, and if it doesn't, it's a miracle. So I'm Sarah Curtis Henry. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Tatcha. Just a little bit about my background. First and foremost, I'm a native New Yorker. Recently kind of relocated to the Bay Area, living in Oakland, working in San Francisco, now working from home like many of you. My background actually in beauty includes a variety of marketing roles. When I look back over the years, I've had both global and local positions in a variety of categories. I've actually also been a general manager. That was my last position prior to coming over to Tatcha. I've had an opportunity to touch almost every category in beauty, which is pretty fun. I've worked on hair care, makeup, fragrance, skincare. And I really, in that process, realized how much of a beauty aficionado I am, how much I love the industry, not just for what you see on the surface, but the way that it emotionally connects with its consumers and really makes people feel. And so learning that in different capacities across markets and across categories has been a great privilege for me. I spent the early years of my career on Wall Street. So, I actually was a new to beauty person coming out of business school during a time where there were quite a few people, or when quite a few people were switching from consulting and finance into the world of beauty. So it was an interesting time to be entering the industry. And I have to say that it's been a privilege to work for companies like L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, LVMH, and now to be part of the Tatcha family. I wanted to say a couple words about skincare, because one of the things Britt asked me is, why do you love skincare? I love it because it's such an exciting and dynamic category. And also because of its proximity to wellness and healthcare. It really is, I think, the most intimate category in beauty in many ways. And there's such a wealth of innovative ideas and ways to execute, both when it comes to formulation, ingredient, campaigns, philosophies. So there's just so much rich content there. No matter how long you work on the category, it just keeps changing and evolving. So that's a little bit about me and my background.
Thank you so much. Kind of digging right into things, you talked about the changes and evolution that you've seen within skincare specifically and how exciting that is. What are some of the recent changes that you've noticed, and what do you expect to see kind of coming into and out of this unprecedented time that we're in?
Yeah, I mean, it's really like, this is a category, the skincare category is what I like to refer to as the little engine that could. Watching the growth over the years has been extraordinary. And I've also had the chance to see the ebbs and flows. I've had a chance to work in the Asia markets, markets like Japan, China, and Korea, where this skin-first approach has been part of the ethos for a long time, where skincare was already a large and established category. And then watching it really come into its own here in the local market, within North America, has been extraordinary. I think there are a couple of reasons for this. So when you ask the question, we talk about it every day, but I thought to myself, okay, how can I synthesize the things that really stand out in terms of what I think has driven this growth? Because there's so many articles written about it, so many different versions and opinions. So here's my take. One is I think it's the result of a skin first, health first approach, and this ongoing shift in consumer focus on achieving inner and outer wellness. It was sort of the perfect storm of that coming together, along with the market being ready and innovation happening in terms of entrepreneurs and new brands and entrenched brands rising to the occasion. We also know that our market was inspired by the markets I just referenced. Japan, China, Korea, the skin first approach, the level of sophistication in skincare also had a big influence. And we've seen, as a result of the need gaps in the market related to the shift in consumer behavior and knowledge. I mean, I don't want to go much longer without talking about the level of expertise amongst consumers. It's really extraordinary how much I am also a consumer, know the level of research, the knowledge we have on ingredients, what's right for our health, what's not. There are varying opinions on that stage as well, but we've become savvier as consumers. So skincare has had to grow and evolve to keep up with that savvy and the level of transparency that consumers expect. So as a result, we've seen a wealth of new and exciting brands come into the market, and we've seen the rise of brands outside of the top 20, outside of the usual suspects that were sort of leading the market and owning the market share. And I think that's added a really dynamic conversation to the market. And in retail, we've seen this shift to skincare leading the conversation, and retailers like Sephora being a strong leader there. We can't talk about retail without talking about direct to consumer and the rise of brands that have been speaking directly, to the consumer and building community and really leveraging e-commerce. And also within the category, e-commerce has become a major category driver. There was a time long ago where it was like, oh, can you sell skincare, online? Is that something that you can do? But I think, digital first has been part of the ethos of many of the brands that have won within this category, harnessing those tools to tell the story, to drive content, and to really connect with community. So, again, that along with consumer behavior shifting, knowledge around wellness and ingredients, have really led to addressing these need gaps in the market. I've seen it done a couple of ways, so I find that interesting. One is that you have the brands that address a growing frustration around knowledge that consumers have in a philosophy and a way of approaching health and skincare, and realizing that there isn't a brand that's actually met it yet. So there's this outcry for brands to come in and really connect with the consumer in that way and address that frustration. I've also seen brands that have been more in the camp of aspirational images, and really kind of driving inspiration and lifestyle and really wanting to share discoveries and knowledge and education that can help to further consumer savvy and bring them into the category in a deeper way. So we've really seen this, these two camps. There are many more, but I'm giving examples. And I think there's also been this outcry against images that people can't relate to, that aren't aspirational, and brands speaking in ways that are more brand centric than consumer centric. And again, I think that's driven to entrenched brands changing and rising to the occasion and really finding ways to accelerate by being consumer first. And then also it's led the way for new brands to jump into the conversation and retailers like Sephora to provide the platform for the conversation. So those are some of the key things that I've seen. And then I just want to talk about a couple of trends along the way within that. Clean skincare has become a movement for quite some time. Things are like transparency are becoming, have become non-negotiable. So there's, any lack of transparency surrounding ingredients, formulation, even what goes on behind the scenes at your company is really a non-negotiable at this time. The brands I think that have come out on top have been the ones that have been authentic in terms of human and emotional connection, often with inspirational leaders at the core, and having those values at the core of their ethos has been incredibly important because people want to connect with human beings and they want you to keep it real. And then, there's also this inspired community that has developed around this conversation, from customers to influencers. And it's a conversation that people want to be a part of, whether it's at a category level or at a brand level. And it's happening in social media and skincare in ways that we could have never imagined, which is also really exciting. Community boards or in reviews, and we know that reviews in skincare have, multiplied versus other categories over the years. So people want to share their experiences and they really want to get it out there. And there's a sense of community that's really fueling this. So I think pre-COVID, we were there. Post-COVID, it's not post, we're living in it right now. We're figuring out that new normal, but skincare has really sustained in a way that I don't think people thought could happen, kind of given this crisis. So within the realm of beauty and kind of what people are gravitating toward, and also in the reality of where we're living our lives and, PPE and the things that are now part of our dialogue, skincare continues to be a go-to for consumers. It continues to thrive on a relative basis. So I still think there's so much more opportunity in this world, but we will have to be where the consumer is mindset-wise in terms of their behavior, how they're feeling and thinking coming out of this crisis, and be of service to them from the products that we offer to the dialogue and the connection that we have with them.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. There's a lot to unpack, I think, and build off there. One thing that really struck me as you were talking was this shift from, I think, a very traditional definition of aspirational content would have been almost untouchable, right? If you look at the past beauty, luxury, apparel content, it's almost like that unreachable ideal. And I think that has definitely shifted into aspirational as accessible, right? As vulnerable. And I think that is something that we're all feeling right now in these times, especially. So, and I'd love to hear from you, across your career or as a professional, not necessarily just at Tatcha, but how do you stay connected to those kind of changing consumer preferences, to what consumers are feeling? And I include you in that as a consumer. I think that dialogue, right, between the knowledge sharing and the knowledge giving from brands to consumers and then back again is incredibly important. So how have you stayed on top of that, and what advice would you have for other professionals to do the same?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much happening, that it's hard to say you can stay 100% on top of it every day because it changes so quickly. But one is by being a consumer, right? Like I walk in their shoes. So like many marketers, I'm surrounded by data. Like I have data for days, and a lot of the data points in the right direction or in the same direction, and then some of it doesn't. So then from there, it's like using your personal experience and your intuition and really talking to people around you. And I'm lucky to have a diverse group of people around me, both personally and professionally, diverse in every way imaginable, that have differing opinions. And I'm able to balance my ongoing focus group, of the people around me with what I'm seeing in data and what I'm seeing in, more formal research. I think also just being where, we're talking, the places that we're talking about, I'm on social media, I'm engaging, I'm reading comments, I'm talking to experts in the industry that are sharing, their perspective. I'll go to a store and I'll ask questions. If I see someone, studying a product, I'll say, oh, can you recommend a hair care, I'm looking for a conditioner. What do you think? I'm well known to have that conversation with someone in the retail environment, and I'm an observer. I love to watch and see what's happening around me, have an eye on what's happening in retail, which is so important, what's happening online, what's happening in campaigns, and really watching what people are saying, understanding it in their words. And I think being a consumer personally that's within a group that is still underrepresented in so many ways, women of color, in beauty, I think lots of strides have been made. I definitely have, based on my own experience, a sensitivity to listening, being aware, kind of turning off your own narrative and really trying to understand and plug into what someone is telling you, and a healthy respect for consumers because they know what's best for them. We don't, they do. And I think our success as brands and in our roles is strongly linked to our ability to listen, to engage, and then tap into those insights and really walk the talk.
I know that you are known for and are very passionate about your role as increasing representation in the industry. I've seen, quotes and comments about you're known for being the CMO who people can pick up the phone and call you and ask them if there's a way that you can really provide value back to them and to drive the conversation around representation forward. That's something that you're always willing to do. Have you felt like brands are kind of responding to the very loud call for appropriate and accurate representation within beauty? And how can we go even further with that?
Yeah. I think a lot of, yes, I am very vocal on these issues. It is important to me that I use the platform I have and any influence I have to share that message and also mentor others. And I've mentored, and still do a variety of people from a variety of different backgrounds and really, kind of be accessible, because I wouldn't be in the seat I'm in if people hadn't given their time to me, if people hadn't have mentored me and given me opportunities. So I really believe that, it's my obligation to give back. And I just love people. I love to engage. So that's just part of it. So that's one piece of it. In terms of beauty, I think a lot of progress has been made. I've been proud to kind of be at the table, to be a change agent, to push for that progress where I've had the opportunity to do it, and to really kind of speak up. Not just for one group in particular, but to say, beauty takes on many forms, and we have to represent many forms and many, different kinds of women, and really let them sort of see themselves reflected in us in whatever way makes sense, for a brand. And I think that, people are much more open and listening and realizing and looking at the commercial side of it too. And saying, if we don't kind of move in this direction, if we don't address this, if we aren't, inclusive, then there's a price to pay for that, both, socially and commercially. So I've been heartened to see that there's been progress on the consumer side and, behind the scenes. With that said, I think we still have a lot of room, a lot of runway ahead of us. At the end of the day, we all know how decisions get made. We all know what happens when decisions are made and they go left. And oftentimes it could be because there wasn't someone from the target audience in the room to kind of say, hey, you know what, red flag, maybe we shouldn't go in this direction, or maybe we should think of this. So, we are not in a position to stop the progress. We have to keep the progress going, especially in letting people know that this industry is accessible to them. I didn't know about this industry until, I was approaching business school. There are many others that don't even see this as an opportunity for them, kind of as their first stop, coming out of school. So we have to kind of expand the outreach to make sure that we are casting a wider net and really finding those people that are talented and really a diverse audience of people. And the other piece is in the C-suite. It's really important to have representation at the executive level where there are decision makers who can greenlight things or approve or push an agenda forward. You need to have diverse representation both in front of camera and behind the camera to really impact real change. So progress has been made, but we have much further to go.
You've talked a lot about the importance of having the right people around you and the role of mentorship in building your own career. Just specifically for the young professionals that are in the audience today, how do you go about that? Should you, reach people on LinkedIn? Can you pick up the phone and call? How have you kind of identified and built relationships with those right people in your life?
I think first I've had a chance to build relationships with people that I truly connect with. Mm-hmm. I think it's one thing to, go onto LinkedIn or, look at sort of, an organization chart and say, okay, that's the most senior person, and I'm going to go out of my way to create a relationship with them. That's one way to do it. But I think for me, personal connection has always worked. Do we share values? Do we get each other? Is this someone that I click with, who gets me and I get them? So there's that personalization that is really important. And of course, I know people want to, build influence and they want to network, but really trying to find someone that you can develop a deep connection with is important. Now, how do you find those people? I think in some cases for me, it's been organic, where I've had a manager. I've been fortunate to have leaders and managers in this industry that have also been mentors in a real way, that have given me opportunities, that have coached me, that have been authentic with me and said, hey, you're doing a great job, or hey girl, hey, you might want to pay attention in this area. And so I appreciate having that, people who were real with me, who wanted to give me opportunities, but also wanted to set me up for success. And that, was really important. So some of those relationships came about organically, just based on opportunities or, teams I've been on and leaders I've had. Others have been where I've reached out to someone that I had interaction with and said, hey, you know what? I would love to have coffee with you and drink coffee and saying, hey, would you be willing to mentor me? I think I have a lot to learn from you. And oftentimes those relationships have blossomed over the years to an exchange that goes both ways. But I haven't been shy about saying, hey, I'd love to get to know you. I'm learning, can you help me? And LinkedIn's a great resource. Lots of people reach out to me on LinkedIn. I try to respond whenever I can. That's the purpose of it. Use it. And go to industry events, network, do things like this. Go out of your way to just make yourself known. And if you're out there, you'll meet people and then you will develop those connections. And just don't be shy about saying, I need mentorship. I need help. I really want this opportunity. Can you help me? Because I think people respond to that.
I think that's great advice. And we are unfortunately at the end of our time. So I'm going to piggyback on that closing thought with a spin on kind of the traditional dinner question. If you could Zoom in today's world with any person, living or dead, who would it be and why?
It's always a good question and I always struggle. I have like 5 different answers when you, when you ask me that question. I would Zoom with, I'm going to pick someone in a political figure. I would Zoom with Governor Cuomo, because it's just been interesting and I'm a New Yorker, but it's been interesting to watch him navigate as a leader through this crisis, and how he's been self-aware and reflective about what, has worked and what hasn't, and where he's been an effective communicator or not. I think it's taught me a lot about vulnerability in leadership. And how to live something with others, and be a firm leader, but at the same time let your heart show and let that vulnerability show. And I think that whether you agree with his politics or not, I think that he strikes a perfect balance, and he's been so present during this time. So it would be great to kind of recap and have dinner and talk about what were you thinking behind the scenes, where you go from here. So that's my dinner date, my Zoom date.
I would imagine his calendar is getting pretty full with that. I think a lot of people have similar feelings. Can't thank you enough. We really appreciate your leadership within the industry and sharing your thoughts and insights with all of us today. I know even personally, they've been incredibly insightful. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.